Okay, good morning. Welcome to Shiva YouTube. A special bonus, Iyun Mitzion, Mishnah Yud here in Paragimel. Reb Shimon says there's three types of Bikurim, not really three types of Bikurim, three different things which could be called Bikurim, the actual Bikurim themselves. And then there's a concept we're learning about called Tosefes Bikurim, where when I go down to my field, even though one cluster of grapes is the first growing grapes, I could add on even the second, third, fourth grapes. That's the Tosefes Bikurim. It actually has a din in a certain sense like Bikurim itself. Then there's Iter Bikurim, we learned about it in the previous Mishnah, where you're just decorating the outside of your basket with other fruits. According to Rebbe Kiva, it has to be Shivas Haminim, but nonetheless, it's not actually part of the mitzvah. We learned, as I explained in Mishnah Ted, it's not part of the Hiddur Mitzvah. Um, the Hiddur Mitzvah has to be actually from the fruits of Bikurim, but it's not obvious. We see from this Mishnah. The Mishnah says that it's Chayiv and Dmai, so it's not really called Bikurim like Tosefes Bikurim. You could eat it Batuma practically, not like Bikurim and Tosefes Bikurim. Nonetheless, it's still part of the Hiddur Mitzvah. It's not the actual mitzvah. It's a Hiddur Mitzvah. It's beautifying the mitzvah. Even when we say beautifying the mitzvah, externally beautifying the mitzvah is different than the actual mitzvah itself. So even though we learned, I'm just going to qualify what I said in Mishnah Tet. Mishnah Tet, we learned, I said the Machlos Shimon and Anas and Rebbe Kiva is whether Hiddur Mitzvah is the overall appearance of the mitzvah, or is it a din in the Chefsa Shal Mitzvah, right? So that's what Rebbe Kiva held. That's why it has to be Shivas Haminim. Here we learn that Iter Bikurim, which is the Hiddur Mitzvah, although it is part of the Chefsa Shal Mitzvah, it's adding on to the Chefsa Shal Mitzvah, or it's an internal beautification, right? Even if people don't know about it, it's internally beautified by having more figs around it, or more grapes around it, or more kernels of wheat around it. So it's an internal beautification, not depending on what people, the onlookers, think. Depending on inherently, it's a beautification of the mitzvah. If there were no onlookers, it's inherently more beautiful. Even though it's part of the Chefsa Shal Mitzvah, the Hiddur Mitzvah, we have to say the Hiddur Mitzvah is not, right? It's clear from this Mishnah, it's not part of, you can eat a bit too much, it's not Bikurim. At the end of the day, it's not Bikurim, it's a Hiddur Mitzvah. So even though a Hiddur Mitzvah is part of the Chefsa Shal Mitzvah, right? It enhances the Chefsa Shal Mitzvah. It's not the mitzvah. It's not in addition to the mitzvah. That's what Tosefes Bikurim is. It's you're adding on to the mitzvah. Here, it's actually different from the mitzvah. So even though we've said it's considered part of the Chefsa Shal Mitzvah, it's considered an external Chefsa of the mitzvah. It's possible to make this classification. There's an internal Chefsa of the mitzvah, which is something like, Bal Tosif and things like that, where you're adding on an extra Berkas Kohen. Instead of three Berkas Kohanim, you give a fourth Berkas Kohen, or you have a fifth sitzis, a fifth corner in your bag, and sitzis corner. You make a sitzis of 5 corners. You put sitzis on them, or you have tefillin of 5 batim, or baltigra 3 batim. That's in the Chefsa Shal Mitzvah, and that's internally in the Chefsa Shal Mitzvah. You're adding a Tosefes, right? It's Bal Tosef, Tosefes. It's an internal Chefsa, and that's maybe we'll discuss in tomorrow. Tosefes Bikurim. It's a din in the Chefsa internally, and then this Chiddush is that Hiddur Mitzvah, even though it's a din in the Chefsa Shal Mitzvah, it's part of the external Chefsa Shal Mitzvah. We'll have to get more into this tomorrow. There's an internal Chefsa Shal Mitzvah and the external Chefsa Shal Mitzvah. I think we just think about it practically. It makes sense, meaning it has to be from the type of mitzvah, but it has to be distinct from it. As opposed to internal Chefsa Shal Mitzvah is just adding on. It's really just expanding the Bikurim as opposed to adding on to the Bikurim. Iter Bikurim would add on to the Bikurim, as opposed to Tosefes is expanding the Bikurim. We'll talk more about this tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed today's share. See you on the next one.